Okay guys, we're nearly finished. So question E actually asks you to look at the usefulness and limitations of different sources to historians who are studying a particular idea or concept. So in this case you have two different types of sources. You have one which is a recount from someone who was there at the time but not necessarily Edward VIII, and the other one are two photographs that are taken during the time during 1936. In this response, what I want you to have a look at while you're looking through the sources over the next couple of minutes is the date, when it was produced, where it was produced. I want you to do the who, when, where, what, why and how questions of the source analysis, which we've been through many times. You also did this for a research project. So look for who, when, where, what, why and how. All right? Alright guys, so what I've got here is the different information that I've picked up about these two sources. So if you look at the first one, which is source 2, it's a recount or an account of Edward VIII's love for Mrs. Simpson, which is written after the time by someone who was an advisor of his. If you look at where it was published in London, and you can look at some of the information that's included in there. Some of the language that's used is actually very biased language. So there are both usefulnesses and limitations to this source. If you have a look at the answer that I've given here, I tell you that source 2 is actually really quite useful to someone studying Edward VIII's reign and his love for Mrs. Simpson. I tell you that it's an advisor, therefore he's in a position of authority. He actually saw what happened and therefore he understood what was going on. So because it's from the time, that's actually a really good, useful piece of information and makes the source more useful. I tell you that he's in a position where he would often talk to Edward, therefore possibly talk to Edward, therefore would have some understanding of what was going through his mind at the time. And I also said that it was produced in London, so he would, the person who wrote it would actually understand the perspective that other people had at that point in time. I think that it's limited though, because it's only the perspective of one person, so it's only what they saw. It isn't necessarily what everyone saw, and the language that's used is very emotive and biased, so it's actually trying to convince you that Edward made the right decision by marrying Wallis Simpson, because he used words like devotion, inspiration, spiritual companionship. They're all really positive words which actually ask you to be sympathetic towards Edward. Alright, now if you look at the photographs, again, if you look at the who, where, when, what, why, how, some of that is limited and some of that is useful. The most useful thing about these photographs is it actually shows you specifically what it was like at the time. So you get to see what people look like and what people were doing at that time. So that's actually quite useful. However, what's more limited about it is that you don't actually know who took the photos or why they took those photos. So that actually becomes quite limited because you don't know why someone was taking a photo of Edward at that point in time. You also there's also a lot of bias within photographs because they only show exactly what is in the viewfinder of a camera at that point in time. You don't know what context those photographs were taken in. You don't know if it looked like that all over Britain or if it was just in that very small part. And so that is actually a limitation as well. The last sentence that you should write in this answer should be something along the lines of, in order to overcome such limitations, you need to cross-reference with other sources from the time to find out whether or not this is an accurate representation. All right, so have a look at the response that I've given to this one and see if you would have come up with the same opinions about it.